Right. Structure.
That was
Sorry, I'm connected to the Teams. I'm just gonna bring my environment up in case I want to pop it open. I'm 10:30 anyway, Mark. So I think you got me at 10:30 or something.
Yep. Really excited.
This is the pro. He's not taking.
All right, everyone, we'll just we'll get started in like 2 minutes, okay?
I think my
Sound check for everybody online. Can someone let me know if you can hear me? Oh, no, yes.
Thank you.
All right, we'll get started. Thank you all for attending in person and also online. We've got 28 people online right now as well. So this is awesome. This is one of our biggest meetings so far. So again, thank you very much for attending. Thank you for finding us as well. So I think we met a lot of you maybe at Suite Connect, the NetSuite event, or maybe with some of NetSuite's marketing themselves as well. So we really thank them for the outreach, which is great because this is what we're trying to do is bring a community of NetSuite users all together, share problems, share successes, and help each other grow within our NetSuite environment. So what we try to do is keep it as a friendly environment as possible. NetSuite's not invited to these events. We're just talking users to users, essentially, and customers to customers within the NetSuite ecosystem. So we talk about a lot of topics at our meetings. So this one, obviously in person as well as online, we have these once a quarter. And then in the odd months, we will have a lunch hosted event as well, where it's bring your question and we will try to answer it, or the collective will try to answer and point you in a good direction as well. So again, thank you very much for attending. Our agenda today, we've got some welcomes and introductions. We're in that now. We've got a few announcements as our Canadian NetSuite user group. We're going to do month-end automation with Rebecca and some of that automation that she's created for her own environment. And we've got some finance questions. Some of you have answered some questions. Shandu here from Kalpa is going to help answer some of those as well. We're not going to get to all of the questions that you submitted, but I think I pulled together at least 5, and one of the questions kind of answers 3 of your questions as well. So again, thank you very much for submitting those. We've got a sponsor, Trailed. Trailed's in the back, Zachary and Jasper, and they're going to talk about their AP automation solution as well. Fantastic. And we've got Save Searches. I'm going to walk you through a few formulas with Save Searches, some easy stuff and some, I think, some wow stuff. So just to create some more creativity in some of your Save Searches and just the art of possible that's out there. We've got data migration. Paul from OptimalData Consulting is going to walk us through with the CSV import tool, updating records, and I'm sure giving us lots of advice on data management within NetSuite as well. And then we're going to wrap up around 12:30 today. So board members that are here, put up your hands. We've got a few: Darcy, Stephanie, and Pavel here. We're missing a few if you are traveling today and couldn't make it. So if you've been to past events, Gavin is not able to attend today, and neither is Lisa. But this group, we're a not-for-profit group, and we are doing this as a volunteer nature as well, running and keeping this group going. And we thank our sponsors, OptimalData as well as Trailed, and that makes these events possible as well. So thank you. We do have open board positions if you are interested in joining and helping out. Usually consists of 1 to 2 meetings per month, and helping out make these events all possible for the membership as well. And right now we're standing around a little over 200 members in mostly the GTA area, because that's really where we got started. And now we're going Canada-wide. We're probably going to have our first meetings in Calgary as well, and start up a little group out there as well. So we are looking for, if you have branches in other regions across Canada and have a location where we could speak at and have volunteer to host it, please talk to me after the meeting or during the meeting. Okay. So again, welcome. additional board members. We've got our lunchbox series every second Tuesday. Try and get that on the calendar. And sorry, sometimes it doesn't happen. If it's a super busy month, it might be the third Tuesday or maybe even the last Tuesday of the month. But we try and make that touch point possible with the members. We do have a live forum group as well, where this takes some of our questions and connections outside of being online here into a forum. Where you can track, other conversations, input on conversations, ask a question. And again, that's open to anyone and everyone to go ahead and answer those questions as well. Always looking for feedback on our content. We do put out surveys and ask, what are you guys interested in? Some of it is driven from the Lunchbox series. If there's certain questions around certain topics, then we'll bring that. Or if NetSuite has launched something that, generally it's a good topic to learn about, then we'll try and introduce that as well. And totally open to your input as well. Love to hear what you guys would like and benefit from in the future. Some sessions we may repeat, like we've done this last year, but we want to do it again just because we've got a churning membership as well. And maybe last year it wasn't, in your wheelhouse, and then this year, hey, you're ready to go and invest in certain areas. So a reminder that Suite Worlds is coming up. I know it's a little in the distance, but October is coming. Hate to skip over the summer, but we need a plan for that as well. And I believe that the window is quickly closing on speakers. So if you were interested in being a speaker at the event, I know Stephanie in Fuse Health was a speaker.
And with Paul, yeah.
With Paul last year.
The last session of the entire week. But we had.
Well, we had a woman who said it was the best session
Yes, so
we attended, so.
and there was about 150 people at our session.
Fantastic. And Suite World is an amazing experience. There is tons of networking to be done at the event. There are tons of breakout sessions. They tend to, I know last year they extended it by a day and gave people the opportunity to attend, 3 or 4 more sessions, which was really helpful because, it's in those sessions that spark new ideas. You may not learn about how to actually do it all, but you get the idea and the seed planted, and then be able to go back and look at those presentations and stuff after the event. So
The hands-on one
the hands-on are
in the labs
fantastic
were
too.
really good.
Yeah. So that's in October. Okay. All right. Again, thank you, Trailed. Thank you, OptimalData, for sponsoring the event. We look forward to hearing more about what you're offering as well to the community, especially when it's a Canadian focus. That's really important to us, and that's what we look for in our sponsorships is have Canadian content within our sponsors' presentations as well. So, again, thank you. Thanks very much. All right, first up, Rebecca.
You get connected here.
Let's get you on Teams. I'll let you share.
On Teams, I just need to share.
Okay, I will stop sharing. You should be great with that speaker as well.
Okay. You still don't have the option of share. Only meeting
okay.
organizers and presenters.
Yep, hold on. I'll find you on the list there. Just
Mhm. There we go. Okay. Can you see my screen?
We'll do a portrait.
There we go. Okay, hi, I'm Rebecca. I work at 1Password and I look after all of their financial systems. So I'm responsible for about 20 different systems, including NetSuite, to manage all of the things that touch money at 1Password. So I'm going to talk about some of the accounting automations that I've done for my accounting team that have just helped them smooth over some processes that are annoying to them and are now pretty easy. I've been working with NetSuite. My first implementation was in 2009, so it's been a very, very long time. I've worked at different organizations that have used NetSuite in various different ways for everything for their business, inventory, manufacturing, software, the whole 9 yards. So I've been using NetSuite a long time. So these are my favorite automations that fix some stupid things that NetSuite did. So I just wanted to kind of talk through them. Okay, so the problem one, journal entries. So if you're importing journal entries from another system, or you're doing a lot of calculations to make your journal entries, you have a lot of backup that you need to attach. So approvers and auditors want to see backup attached to journals. When you import them, you can't just attach the backup, right? So NetSuite has this file cabinet where you can attach a file and attach it to many journals. But unfortunately, as you're importing, that doesn't work. So you would have to go through each journal and add it. So I've made a little utility that allows them to do that. So let's say these were the journals that I imported, and I wanted to like get everything that says Q1 COGS in the memo and attach the same backup to it. So I made a little Suitelet where we get to attach backup, search for the text, pick the date. Oh, it was January 1st. My counting team's really behind. There we go. And then I'm just gonna say, so the nice thing about this utility is it allows you to either do a URL. So like if you store your backup in Box and you just have a link to a document, you can put a link, or you can upload a file to NetSuite's file cabinet. They'll both work and they'll both attach to all of your journals. So all it does is kind of run a MapReduce script that goes and finds, puts it in the file cabinet, and then attaches it to all of your journals over time. So that's automation one. Does anybody else have that problem with journal entries? No? Yeah, yeah, a few people. Cool. Automation two. I'm not going to go into presentation mode. So NetSuite amortization. If you use custom segments or custom fields on your bills, those don't get tracked into the amortization. So if you use amortization schedules to like do prepaid or for software or whatever, it loses that detail. So you'll just get, oh, a vendor, $100, and then you're like, oh, well, like, what was that related to? Was that for a marketing event? Was that for whatever? It misses that. So what I have done is create another script, and it basically, I forgot to put in my little piece that runs it, but the accounting team can run this themselves. But it's basically a script that does an amortization update. So it's a MapReduce script, or yeah, MapReduce script again. So it goes out and finds all of your amortization entries, and then it attaches the original detail from the bill. So it goes out, it looks at the amortization schedule, it finds the old bill, it goes to the bill, it looks for the account, finds all the information on that account line, and then attaches it to the amortization. So that's basically what it does. And I forgot to deploy it. And then we could just run it. So essentially what this does is goes out, finds any amortization schedule, and then does an update. So it kind of runs on a safe search where it like looks for all of my amortizations, goes and updates them, and then when it's done, the safe search gets empty. So if you go and look at my amortizations that I have now, Oh, didn't work. Okay. So basically, I might not have had one queued up to do it. So I promise this works in production. Yeah. So basically, from my amortization schedules, anything that has data on the bill would get an update to the journal that says, hey, this is the amortization schedule I came from, and here is the line detail that was missing. So that's another fun accounting automation. So like if you used event on the original bill, that would be populated now on the schedule. And it will also update the memo to say, hey, I came from this amortization schedule and this information so that you can quickly read it in here. So that's just kind of fun, quick month-end automation.
I love that you're putting fun in.
Yeah. Well, it is fun, right? Like when you can just click a button and your problems are solved, it's pretty nice.
I like you.
Yeah. Okay, the third one, allocation schedules, same deal. So they don't have information like vendor. Create software across your teams, across your employees. It doesn't remember that you have a vendor attached to that, and then it's really hard to see where your original costs from. Likewise, it doesn't maintain any of your custom segments or custom fields. And the other thing is like my accounting team likes to do their allocations in separate accounts. So they're not actually adjusting the original entry. They just have two offsetting accounts and say, oh, actually, this is our allocation. NetSuite doesn't handle that either. So I made them kind of a thing called month-end magic where they can look at it. So they can see the allocation that goes into it. They can validate that this is correct. They can see the transactions that go into it, validate that that is correct. And this allows them flexibility to like modify these searches, make them be what they want them to be, go and update the data. And then when they're ready, they can just say, run the month-end process, and this runs a script for them that just goes out and does those allocation entries however they want. So for instance, if we, like in my environment, we have some extra things on the record where we say things like, so we might have some extra fields that are unusual, but so like if you have a source account that you want it to go to, and then you could look for lists, accounts, cool. And then at our destination, when we have those entries where we just want them to go into two offsetting accounts and like don't touch the original entries. Cool. So then on the record itself, my users can say, hey, actually for this one, I want the accounting to be like this. So I can put a different source and destination. I mean, these are obviously nonsense. You wouldn't do this. But what my scripts do is pick up all of the information on this and say, okay, like let's make this entry the way that you want it to go. So that's another fun automation on the AP side. Yeah.
I love the magic.
I mean, it is kind of magic. So like in our production environment, we have like 20 of these. So we allocate rent across employees differently. We allocate software. We take IT expenses and allocate them across all the teams, right? So there's a lot of them. And if you have to do them all manually or through like spreadsheets, it's not cool. This is a lot easier because you're taking info from the system, putting it back in the system. The system can do that. All right. And then some of the other automations we do that I wanted to tell you about. We have obviously auto approval on orders and invoices. So when orders are simple and meet certain criteria, we approve them. We validate addresses for customers using a large learning model. So I don't know if anybody uses Avalara, but like if the address doesn't match, that causes problems. So let me just make this bigger. So basically I feed the address from NetSuite into an LLM and it comes back with an estimated accuracy for me. So it'll say stuff like, oh, it's in Wentworth, but the postal code is this, but that's the wrong city. Something is wrong. Go look at it. So what we do is we say anything that's over like 75%, cool, just pass it through. Anything below that, somebody looks at and goes and like does some research, figures it out. It also checks domains because sometimes our salespeople put the wrong email on an order, stuff like that. So it does all that, and then it just kind of gives you like the record it came from, so you can go sort it out. Yeah. So the prompt for this is pretty crazy, pretty intense. Validate this address, return weather. Cool. Yes.
Is it validating? So it's validating, like it's searching the web to validate.
Searching the internet, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of that thing that you would love an intern to do, but nobody wants to pay an intern to check every address. So an LLM is perfect for that.
And is it doing that all the time, or is it?
Every single order that we get from Salesforce, it checks. Yeah, so it checks that over and over and over for everything. Yeah. So those are my major automations, but I wanted to ask you what kind of problems you guys have at month end, and maybe we can talk about like ways that you could automate that. Yeah.
Well, I would say problem, but the allocation one is really good. We do from shared service, we allocate the cost of shared service based on the revenue for the billable subsidiaries.
Yeah.
So that's something that
And it's very flexible, right? Because you can do it for anything you need to allocate.
that would be a good one.
Nice.
Probably get in touch with you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah. Anybody else have anything that like caught your attention?
I feel like you use that address prompt for, like, even if it's like a one-time prompt to just go to the whole customer list.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you could have an agent chew through.
Or something to like check all of our addresses, change or.
Yeah,
Or whatever.
absolutely. Like it's a good way to check that you have valid information. So you could definitely use it for like leads or prospects or just, data maintenance over time.
So is that an added feature or it just comes in from the NetSuite?
Okay, so like I use ChatGPT for this one, but you could use Claude and I'm not sure. Do you know, Mark, if the NetSuite LLM can like actually go out to the internet? No. So you need to use one that can like search the internet, right? So that might be dependent on your IT. There might be dependent on which service you bought. But as long as you can connect NetSuite to an LLM that touches the internet, you can do this.
Question for you, are you using that, I know Mr. Davidson was showing the MCP configuration for NetSuite. Are you using that?
So this I did before that came out. So this was basically, I use Workato as an iPass that goes and connects to NetSuite and grabs the addresses as part of my integration with Salesforce and goes and checks them with the ChatGPT. But there's no reason you couldn't use the MCP for it. It's just an easier way to pull data out of NetSuite.
Yeah, and then the MCP will obviously provide guardrails for your data set as well, right? And probably allow for greater connections to the ecosystem that you've got. You've got CRM systems and so forth. I've seen that in our own environment. We're connecting to, for instance, Fathom.ai, which is the key taker, as well as their CRM system, HubSpot, and then we're connecting the data. We're doing all this.
Oh yeah, like MCPs are really, really useful and they're really fast at getting you the data out of NetSuite, right? So like when you have to build this from scratch, it's a giant pain, but like the MCP, it'd be a lot easier just to like, hey, get this address and go check it. Like a lot simpler. Nice. Anybody else? Questions?
I mean, how did you build the automations and?
Oh yeah, so they're mostly scripts, right?
Yeah.
So My approach when I'm building a script is to make it as user-friendly as possible. So the last one on my screen here is tax reclass. So for instance, at the end of the, like we use ANROC to do our tax calculations, very similar to Avalara. But because it puts it all in one account, right? So we want to push it all out into different payables accounts. So we know exactly like which amount we owe which government, and then we have something to reconcile against. So I have a script that goes and reclasses every tax that comes into the NROC account according to the location and the currency and stuff like that. And then it will, it puts it in its base currency too. So you don't have revaluation after it gets registered. But for that, I have a giant list of rules. So the user can put, oh, this country goes to this account in this way. And I have some rules around like percentages for provinces and stuff. And we have the same on the AP side, actually. So anything that's reclaimable, we throw into other accounts. So with a little scripting, it's so easy to do this stuff now. And like agents are really good at writing scripts. So like you can use Claude or you can use OpenAI or you can use whatever and just say, hey, I need a NetSuite script that does this. And it writes you pretty good scripts. Did you have a question?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry, I went a little fast, but
That's okay.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. That's pretty awesome. And I guess when Rebecca says, and you can go to AI, right? Basically, make your own scripts if you're not comfortable with that. Like post in the forum, and maybe somebody else can help out.
Yeah, I have a few minutes left. I could actually show an example if you guys want.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Okay. Where am I? Lost the user group. Let me share again. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to use the one that I'm most comfortable with. It's on the screen. Oh, did I lose it? I lost it. Oh, there I am. Okay, so we use this thing called Dust. So Dust connects to multiple AIs. So it will connect to Claude or ChatGPT or Anthropic. Like it'll attach to anything. So I made myself an agent that's a NetSuite Script Pro. But you can just ask like ChatGPT or Claude, just normal, say, hey, write me a script. So like, what's an example of a script somebody would like? Anybody where you're like, got an idea?
Validation.
Okay. So I need a NetSuite script. I'll allocate expenses the end of the month from account 123 to account 156. Cool. And then it kind of goes through its thing and it thinks about it. It'll take some time, but the nice thing about Dust is it kind of shows you its entire thought processes it's going through and talking to the various open like for like AI models. Yeah.
I'm sorry if I missed this. Are you using an agent that you trained specifically on your NetSuite instance?
No, so this agent, I told it it's an expert at writing NetSuite scripts. That's all it is. Yeah, I can show you that too. Okay, so now I just wrote me a script. Yeah, right, but like usually these work. Usually you can just save them and they work. Yeah.
Magic.
This is the magic part. But the nice part is it also explains, you know, why this works, what it's doing. But yeah, basically scripts can be pretty easy and way easier than they used to be, which is nice. I'll show you my agent, just so you know. So the NetSuite data guide is the one that's connected to our MCP so that we can like look at information, and we gave it a lot of instructions for that. But here's my NetSuite script one. And the nice thing about Dust is it has a little sidekick, so I was able to just be like, hey, you're an expert in NetSuite script, write some prompts for yourself, and it did. So it's basically saying like, I know all this stuff. There's some common things, so it's faster. It also helps me write PDF templates, which if anybody has used those before are very annoying. It's pretty good at that too. And I had it also be an expert at SweetQL. So if I need to write a query, and then I told it I always want to be able to copy and paste the whole script, not the little snippet it will write for me. And then I like gave it some rules so it doesn't give me fake data, so it doesn't make internal IDs for me. So that's basically how I use AI to write scripts all the time now. I used to do them by scratch, and this is way, 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 way faster and easier. So like writing a script like that would have taken me a couple hours, more complicated ones, a couple of days. And now it's just like you write it, you see what happens. And then like
That's your like gem or.
yeah, so like Gem or
Yeah.
Chat or like whatever, Claude, like
Pull the data from to, I like how to do all that. Just write all that stuff, or did you like pull stuff from the, script guides or whatever?
yeah, so I didn't pull any data. I just told it to go be an expert. And then it decided to go be an expert. So it's kind of nice. Like a lot of these tools, you don't need to do a lot of homework. Like the only one I've ever pulled data for is the Zip API because you need to be logged in to see their documentation. Thankfully, NetSuite has a lot of their documentation out there on the internet. So these tools know it. There's a lot on GitHub about scripting in NetSuite. So they're well trained. They already know how to write scripts pretty well. So it works. And then the best part is if you run this script and you don't like you get an error, you just put the error in here and say, like, hey, I got an error. And it says, oh, let me fix that for you. And it just like fixes it. So yeah, I use this all the time for scripting. I used it to make the files to import into Bing for this demo, stuff like that. So yeah, it's your best friend for NetSuite.
We're down at the end.
Question.
That's you. Yep.
Yeah.
One is, when you write the script, you have a very particular setup in your NetSuite. How does the agent know your setup?
Oh, I'm very precise when I give it. Like I'm going to show you a script that I've actually written, like a real one. Okay. So I give it like much more particular prompts when I'm writing scripts for myself. I mean, actually, that's pretty straightforward. Let me find one that was complicated. Let's see my prompt here. That's not a good one either. Ooh. I write a lot of scripts every day. Okay, so this is very precise, right? So I'm saying I need a scheduled script that loads this specific safe search, and then for each bill, it's going to look at each line, take the total, including tax, and update that to be the amount. So basically, this is for our bills where we've recorded sales tax in like an expense system. It comes in a NetSuite with sales tax, but it's not recoverable. So we don't want to actually record it as tax. We just want it to be against the original expense. So this is going and updating all of the like tax lines to be like 0 and then putting it back in the original amount. Kind of stupid, but that's what we're doing. Yeah, so I'm just like really being really precise about what I want it to do and what like the tax code ID should be and stuff like that. So the more precise you are, the better it is at like writing you a script that does what you want. So you tell it everything it needs to know about your environment, and then it will just write the code.
Sometimes you have to train it. So like I was just doing a quick query on sales orders that are pending approval. It didn't know what pending approval actually meant. So I had to tell it on the sales order, the status equals pending approval.
Yeah.
So then it knows and then it understands. So that's a real simple example, but that's once you train it, then it knows that for the next time and the next time, the next time.
Actually relates to the instance.
Yeah,
So you have to be very specific, explain your own environment in order to get what you want.
yeah, but there is also like if you train it as an agent where it says like, hey, you know a lot about NetSuite and it can go and research that. Sometimes you don't have to argue with it over what pending approval means. So like you can just put it in blank and you'll probably get a script out and some of it will be wrong. If you put it in an agent where you've trained it a little bit, you get a better result. But for like instance, this one I got an error when I put in their script and ran it. I was like, and it's like, oh, let me fix that. So it fixed it.
My second question is, when you connect an LLM to your NetSuite instance, does it affect your privacy of data? I am
Ooh.
out
Yeah, absolutely. So the nice thing about the NetSuite MCP specifically is that it respects your access rights. So I can only see in, like, if I go talk to my NetSuite agent that's connected to the MCP, I can only see the things I'm allowed to see. Now, it's also really important, especially in healthcare, to make sure that the model that you're using is not learning from your data, right? So like we have a specific contract with these vendors that we get to use them and they learn about our data internally, but that does not go back to their models, right? So there's no ability for me to search something here and then somebody else to search something and find something that I have access to that they shouldn't. So we have those guardrails in place with our with the AIs that we've picked. Does that make sense?
You have to make sure that you have that option for.
Yeah, you have to make sure that the AI that you have contracted with, like you'll need a contract and you'll need to pay for it to make sure that it's not taking your data back out. Yeah. Yeah.
If I didn't understand what you're asking.
Yeah, exactly. So you just have to make sure that you have a contract with that AI provider that says, hey, you're not training your data on our data. Like that is private. Exactly. And then also you'll want to make sure that it's configured within your organization to not share data across sensitive areas. So with this agent or with this tool desk, we have a space that's dedicated to finance. And only finance people can be in there. So that limits also the risk of that data getting outside of finance.
You want to share a first learning for us when we started connecting Claude? We were giving instruction or prompts to query certain fields, and we were using field names that we had renamed those fields, and those field names had only been renamed on certain forms. So the learning for us was rather than reference the field name, we actually referenced the field ID number.
Yeah, always.
To avoid, so it's just like a neophyte.
Yeah, so that is a great best practice, is always use the internal ID when you can. And then also give your fields good internal IDs because like when I first implemented, the consultant was like, oh, just make a new field. And we're like, custom column 1, custom column 2, custom record field 1, right? Not very helpful, especially if you're trying to like understand what you're doing. So always give your fields a good name if you're making a new field too. Did you have a question online?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
a couple. Yep.
Ask away.
So how about automations of balance sheet reconciliations?
So yeah, like if you're just kind of like looking for counts versus the GL, I mean, I personally, right now, I would use an agent connected to the MCP for that. So we do variance analysis using that. So like just ask the MCP the question is the easiest way to automate that. But you can definitely do that through searches and scripts. But I think an agent is probably much, much faster and easier to do that.
The other question you may have already answered it, the AI platform you're using and agent instructions.
Yeah. So this is Dust. So it's an agent platform that connects to different AI models in the backend. So they connect to Claude and ChatGPT and I think a couple others for our organization because we have Gemini too, right? So it connects to everything and it picks the best model for the question that you're asking it, which is kind of the.
If you're not.
I'm a little bit spoiled. Yeah.
will not.
MCP and Claude would be a good option, but yeah. Any other ones online?
Nope.
All right.
Any other questions for Rebecca? Walked through quite a bit. It's an awesome tool. Like I sat at NetSuite Connect and I couldn't believe NetSuite is teaching everyone how to do scripting through AI because it's a scary experience to actually do it. And the more that you put into your environment uncontrolled is also a little bit of risk depending on what you're doing as well in the situation. So
Your release preview is a great place to try out scripts.
yes.
And, for anybody, it's like, oh, I do not have any formal training about scripting. Like I taught myself just by wanting to do stuff in NetSuite. So anybody can do it. There's a lot of information out there and it's way, way easier now with these agents.
Yes.
Is this meeting being recorded?
It is. It is. Yes. Yes. And it will be posted online. So
Okay, great.
Yeah, and if anybody wants the scripts that I actually use for this, just reach out and I can send you mine and then you have to fix it for your organization.
maybe we'll put those in our forum. Right. We're adding products to the forum as well. And,
Oh, cool.
yeah,
Cool.
you can trademark it and copyright it.
Fancy.
Right. Excellent. Any other questions? There's always lots around AI, and AI is throughout a few of the presentations today as well, because it's so new, right? And there's so many questions around it, and how do you get started with it? The MCP is an excellent tool. I have it connected through ChatGPT with our Canadian NetSuite user group instance as well, where Rebecca was, showing some of her things there. It's a fantastic tool to use and query your data. Gavin has been using Claude. He also thinks it's a fantastic tool. The big difference that I've seen, at least on the surface, Claude, you can actually ask it to go and create a transaction back in NetSuite or update data within NetSuite, which gives me the shivers as well as, wow, that's fantastic, right? You just have to make sure that, yeah.
But we've done
is-
testing around that, and as long as it's the MCP, it can only create transactions you would already be able to create, and it tracks them as yours. So, if you wouldn't normally be able to create journal entries, you won't be able to create journal entries. That's the benefit of using the MCP. And it will follow all your processes around journal entries because it looks like you created it. So it's kind of the same thing with taking data out. Once you get that data, what you do with it is still your responsibility as a human. Like you can't just share it with everybody and be like, look what I did. So
Rebecca, I have a question.
Yeah.
There was a presenter here, some was telling me, a Swift test, I think it's called, last session.
Yep.
Would you run that in that environment just to kind of prevent data corruption or data that you don't want?
I mean, I would love to have Swift tests, but I also would love to have the time to implement something like Swift tests, right?
Last part there, Rebecca, didn't hear that.
I haven't had time to implement a tool like that. Like I would love to have automated testing all over NetSuite. That would be beautiful. But I tend to only write scripts that do what a human would be able to do in NetSuite, right? So like they don't do anything fancy. They don't do a lot of math. They just kind of take what's in the system and then spit it back out, right? So generally, you're not going to corrupt your data when you're doing that, when you're just kind of doing an automation that acts like a user could act, just faster.
Yeah, I could really appreciate that from a a reporting perspective that you're extracting data. But if you're writing journal entries and that sort of thing, it may be a test environment.
Oh yeah, yeah. Doing it in your sandbox or your release preview first is always a good method.
In the NetSuite ecosystem, the sandbox quite a bit of a financial lift versus a guy like Swift has. That'd be my question.
The sandbox is usually around 10K, which is not too bad if you're doing a lot of stuff. And then, I mean, you always get your free release preview, so you could just like every 6 months have like a time where you just go like crazy and just try out all the stuff you've been wanting to test and test it there. Swift test, like, it will be in production still, right? So it will tell you when there's errors, but you're still making changes in production using that tool.
Yeah. Not part of the company. I don't know, but I just thought it was thinking about it here system.
No, like, I mean, like, that would make my life easier because right now we have to do our test cases manually,
Yeah.
right? And like, I would like to have a tool like that someday, but I just haven't had the time to focus on that yet.
Yeah, I'd like to drive force too.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and maybe before we move on to the next section, I'll just see if I can share this. So on our onsug.org, or cansug.ca, I believe it is, under member resources, if you scroll down, there's the recordings from our previous events as well. So when, like Jasper's mentioning, Swift tests, that recording and their presentation is all in there. Okay? Just have to fast forward a little bit around. It's like the full 3 hours is all there in the recording for you. Okay? And any supporting documentation, we try and put that onto our site as well. And that's totally open for all of our members. Okay. All right. Our next agenda item is our financial Q&A. So we had a few questions that were submitted. Yeah, again, thank you. We try to pick the ones out that are strictly financial Q&A. It tends to be the most members in our group that we just have different questions around that financial experience. So Shandu's you're gonna present these ones? Yeah.
Okay. Can you guys all hear okay from here? Okay. Well, I don't know if the people.
Can you hear online? Can you hear Shandu? Okay. It's a thumbs up or something online.
Maybe I could. If you want, I can come up front.
Yeah,
Kenny says,
I'll move.
Kenny says we're good.
Oh, we're good?
Yep,
Okay.
yep, we're
I'll
good.
try to speak loud so people online can hear me.
Yeah.
So the first question is about creating like a rolling 13-week cash flow forecast. So if you guys haven't already installed Cash 360 in your NetSuite instance, it's a free suite app where you already have like pre-configurations of reports in it. So this specific report, if you go into your NetSuite instance, just type in weekly cash projection, you will actually see some reports in there which already has a 13-week forecast. If you want to make that report a little bit more dynamic, going based on what Rebecca was just saying, like if you like the report and you want to make it more dynamic or change some of the criteria, feel free to like take a screenshot of that formulas and put it onto cloud or put it onto anything like ChatGPT to get like different formulas. So if you're saying, oh, this is like a rolling week from the start of the week, and I want to make it more dynamic where I choose the date and it does rolling week from that date, you can change the formula by just taking the existing formula and putting that one on ChatGPT. So a good resource for everyone is, I think everyone who has installed NetSuite from 2023 onwards, they should have the Suite app installed. But if you've been logged in before, you can definitely just go into Suite app, search Cash 360, and just make sure that's installed. But all the native NetSuite reports should be on. Any questions about this one or any other reports that might be helpful for you guys?
Yeah, the concern that I have with Cash 360 is that the reports are built in and they're static, so you cannot change anything. And it takes sometimes information that's not relevant. or
So-
not correct?
You can, it depends on your role as well, because for me, when I have admin access, I can go in and edit and change the reports. So you could also reach out to your IT person to see if you're he wears
Same person.
I could probably show you during one of the breaks, but most of the reports, they are editable. So you can usually do a copy of it. So you can save as and then just put a hyphen, put your organization's suffix and just save it as a new version and then just make edits to it.
Right, but then you cannot pull it in the overall.
But you could add it you could add it in that same menu as like your custom
Yeah.
tab or custom report.
Can it handle multiple currency?
Yeah, it can. So similar to the reports, when you go into the results, you typically have like how you want to do conversion. If you want to do like a consolidated exchange rate, or if it depends again on which role you have and what access you have. So typically if you have access to all subsidiaries, you will see the currencies as the parent company's currency. But if you want to be able to see what is the currency per entity, you can put a filter in to change that.
So the same entity, two, like two currencies, that's the challenge
Yes.
that we find in NetSuite. It's not based on entity, one entity, but we have two currencies within that statement.
Which currency do you want the reporting to happen?
Well, cash flow, you want both, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Canadian,
Yeah,
but
whatever the source, whatever the main primary currency is for that.
Yeah, so when you change the consolidated exchange rate to be like none, it's going to convert the USD into CAD because that's what your report is going to be. But so you can change that in the setting of that search tab.
Do you have an example that you can show?
But you want me to, I have it on my laptop, but I'm not.
or maybe we can do it at a break, yeah.
Have a break?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
yeah, but basically I just looked at it and the saved search under it uses the default amount, which would be the translated up to your consolidation amount, right? But if you change it to amount foreign currency, you're going to get it in the foreign currency amount. You could just add a column for currency, right? So there's a lot of options because it's a saved search. You can pretty much do anything with it. Danger, but yeah. So
Typically also recommend like having both the columns of amount and foreign currency, and then you could do a formula of just doing differences, and then you
I think that's what we do in our function.
Yeah.
It's that, yeah,
Okay.
we're together, like,
Yeah.
same, same that's.
Yeah.
What data does the forecast uses to create the report? We need to have constant line connection to have a lot of integration. And some of these integrations are not daily, like they're not uploaded daily. But it's on
yeah, so then your cash flow would be useless until you upload the data. Yeah.
I don't know what kind of data is being.
So this report, which is in NetSuite, it uses transactions which are created in NetSuite. Invoices, vendor bills, and all of that. So
you like the amount of the using the.
So this specific report is a weekly
OB.
forecast that uses transactions, but you can look at cash flow. They do have some forecasting based on your previous information, just not the specific report she's talking about.
So this one just looks at what's in your system posted for future dates
Yeah,
for the next 13 weeks.
exactly.
13 weeks.
13 weeks.
Yeah, okay. So it doesn't look at the past.
No,
So if you have prepaid, not prepaid is not a good example, but if
it,
you have.
it wouldn't look at your last year's transactions and be like, oh, we think you're gonna have
Yes,
this much this year. Yeah.
okay.
But it can take like your purchase orders or sales orders if you have those and like incorporate them into these forecasts. But yeah, like I think if you want more something like, hey, take my last year's numbers plus what's in and look at it, you might want to use an agent or like an AI for that. You're going to get a better answer.
Like, for example, rent is coming out every month, so it would not forecast that because
Yeah.
there is no entry. That's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we shared a couple of screenshots of what a stage search.
would look like. So that is a native NetSuite report that comes out of the box. That screenshot looks a little bit old because it's a few years ago, but it's the exact same report that exists right now. So if you search up weekly cash projections in your environment, you should be able to find it. As Kim pointed out, like you can't make changes directly on that save search. You will have to save as and put a suffix and change the name. So because you can't edit the native NetSuite report, you have to always make a copy of it. And then that's the one. So I typically sometimes if the formula is very complicated, a lot of times if you're trying to do something that's more dynamic, just going based on Rebecca's ChatGPT or AI, like AI is your best friend. A lot of times, like not everybody knows SQL on top of their head. So if you want to change formulas, and this is also the criteria of that report. So it is just looking at AP and AR accounts, and it's looking at very specific statuses of transactions. So you can always go and change those statuses if they don't align with the way that you do cash projections. And you can also change that formula by just copy pasting that into AI and say, oh, I want this formula, just help me make these changes. And you will get a formula. The one tip I would give you for when you're trying to use AI to make changes, always try to make sure that before you apply changes to a whole set of report, always choose like 3 or 4 transactions that you know what the end result is going to be. In your criteria, select those document numbers and put them in so then you see what the end result is, because it's much harder to know if the report is working right if you just apply a formula that AI gives you. So for me, every time I use AI, I always like to pick 3 or 4 examples, very different examples, and see, okay, is the formula actually working as expected? And if it's not working, I give more prompts to the AI to see, okay, how do I change this formula? So that's one small tip when you're using AI to make changes.
Great.
All right, so the next question is about revenue recognition when you are a service-based organization that does a mix of T&M and fixed fee projects. And more importantly, they want to understand how did it do work in process for those types of projects. So typical general rule of thumb for us is we don't usually have T&M and fixed fee on the same project. So if you even go into native NetSuite projects, it gives you the billing type. You get to only select one or the other. You can't do both at the same time. The reason for that is because when you do T&M, you're essentially billing monthly. So the work done is actually matching the revenue that you're billing out. So typically, if you are doing T&M and you're billing out every single month, your work done matches your revenue. So that's why you don't need to defer your revenue into the future period. The only time you would use percent complete on a fixed fee project is, let's say you have a project that's going on for 8 months or 10 months, and then you cannot recognize the whole revenue at the end of the 9 months or end of the 10 months. You are basically spreading that revenue based on how much work was completed. So if in Jan you did 10%, Feb you did 20%, March you did 40%, you're actually dividing your revenue based on the work that was done. So our recommendation typically is so there's a couple things over here. It depends. I'm not sure who the user was who submitted it.
No.
That is you? Okay. I'm not sure if you guys have ARM in your account because that is the more advanced revenue recognition module. So if you go on your projects tab, if you see it in the financial subtab, there would be something called percent complete override. You guys have that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we
But
wouldn't
we've
be
never
doing it on
used-
the same
no.
project. It would be this customer is this way, this customer is
This.
Yeah,
one's fixed fee, one's.
yeah, but
Yeah.
we've had instances, at least on the other side
Oh.
of the border, where we do have projects which have both. But they can have a T&M portion, which is for fees, time-based, but there could be a portion in the sales order that is a fixed fee. And then they can have an out-of-pocket cost, which is again based on the actuals received from vendor bills.
Is it
So,
possible? So typically, even the sales order, when you try to generate the sales order, you will get an error message on the items because you cannot have two items, one that is doing revenue recognition and the other one that's direct posting on the same sales order.
correct.
So typically, you need to separate your sales order in that.
Or you can create a direct posting revenue recognition item. We had this discussion
That's right.
last week. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've done that. We've created two items, one which was direct posting.
Yeah. And then one that has the revenue recognition schedule that's like 100% upfront.
Yeah.
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 But I just wanted to ask, like, how's the experience been with using the web module in NetSuite? Because I've heard very mixed.
Things about it.
Yeah,
It depends on the scale of your business. So typically, if a company does majority of their projects are percent complete, it's much easier to use the revenue recognition module. So there's two ways it works. With native NetSuite, if you're using the native NetSuite percent complete, it's just looking at how much time and materials has been entered against the task, and it automatically calculates a percent complete and puts it into it. Sometimes with construction companies, they don't just have those details on the task. So there are other suite apps that allows you to compute what your percent complete is and put it onto that percent complete override table as well. So that is an option. I think something for you to also consider is like how big, how many times are you actually doing it for you to have that automation? Because if you don't want to do the automation, you can just do like the standard journal entries to just post it into the deferred account without having to do the automation too often.
You're talking about the web, bundle that
Yes.
allows you to match the expenses and to the revenue recognition.
yeah,
You guys have the ARM module,
we do, but we've not used it.
and do you have the revenue allocations as well as the revenue management? You have a web bundle in your instance.
We do,
Do you know if you have the old one or the new one?
but
There's
I
like a
haven't
way
tried
that you add
it.
it, so if you got it before like 2022 or something like that.
So we have that.
We have to look at.
So the new one, depends on how you're using it. Are you doing pre-billing or are you doing?
Yeah.
Okay, you have to have the revenue allocation. Okay, the revenue allocations is a rather expensive licensing, so you have to get your AM to help you. Okay, but anyway, so we can talk about that offline as well, but the way it works is that it uses the allocation to allocate to that expense and then match the revenue. And that's how it like brings the two together. But it like has a lot of steps in order to make it work. Yeah.
Next question.
The next one is about Canadian payroll processing. So there's a couple options here. One, so you have two options here. You want to think about it as depends on your system, like people like how your system is structured. So sometimes people tend to have everything built into NetSuite, so they could have just a payroll suite app like Zone and Co, PayBuddy from Aria Life. So those are suite apps that are already in NetSuite. And sometimes people go for best of breed approach where they can have like Salesforce or other systems that integrate into NetSuite. So it really depends on like how you want to position it. I'm not sure who the user is that submitted this question, but it depends on your environment because ADP, UKG, Zoho Payroll, they all do a fantastic job as a payroll. So the question really comes down to how many users you want to have in your NetSuite ecosystem and what is the complexity of the payroll that you're looking at. So sometimes when you're trying to bring in payroll into your system, you need to consider the additional number of users that you're bringing on, licenses, which can start to become really expensive. So a lot of times people do the best of breed approach when they know, okay, we want to reduce our NetSuite license costs and we're okay spending on best of breed, ADP, UKG, and let that be outside of NetSuite. and we will do an integration of bringing in payroll job costing to the integration into NetSuite. So let the HR payroll be in a different system, and we'll just do job costing through the integration into NetSuite. So that's
And if you were looking for a demo on Zone and Co, they were a sponsor, I think it was about a year ago in one of our meetings as well. We walked through it specific to Canadian payroll.
They able to bring in journal entry at the project level?
I don't remember, sorry. Vivian?
The next question is about best practices for GRIR. So the terminology, if someone is not familiar, that's just goods received, invoice received. So this is more common when you have a distribution or manufacturing company or any company that essentially receives goods into their warehouse, and there's a difference between receiving the goods and getting the vendor bills from their suppliers. So the typical NetSuite process is, if you think about your item receipts, the GL impact on your item receipts is typically debiting your inventory and crediting your accrued purchases. And then your vendor bills are typically debiting your accrued purchases and crediting your accounts payable. So the accrued purchases acts as the account that helps you match if there's any differences between them. So ideally, when you get your item receipts and your vendor bill, they should ideally net out. But a lot of times you're seeing with a bunch of customers where there is a difference between item receipts and vendor bills because there could be changes in currencies, especially if there is, changes in the currencies between CAD and USD. There could also be some small variances between, just the rates. So at the time of you receiving your inventory, it could have been, like $2 for an item. And then when you receive the vendor bill, they might have been 2.01 or some decimal differences. So the easiest way to handle this one in NetSuite is if you go under transactions payable, there is an option for you to do post vendor bill variances. So when you click on that screen, you will get like a sweep list, which allows you to see any vendor bills where there is a difference between your item receipt and your vendor bill. So even if there's small differences, it allows you to post a journal entry to just close off those differences. And you can also just filter out by which periods those things came in and the dollar amounts as well. So that allows you to just make sure that your accrued purchases is net zero.
This is more manual, but is it wrong to just go back and edit the item receipt and edit the bill, make sure they match?
It will, the only problem is that it depends if it's in a closed period. Like if you're doing it in an open period, it will allow you to edit. But the problem is that if your vendor item receipt is in the previous period, and that's when you run into problems. So the best practice is typically don't do that, even though you can, it's not recommended.
Yeah.
So use the journal entry option too.
So then, I just have a quick question. When you said closed period, sometimes we run into a thing that, say, a manager posted some costs that came in to the wrong job and wants to fix it afterwards, but that period is closed. How do you go around that to make that happen?
So
Can you do that or no?
you would have to again create a journal entry to offset what was posted and then just recreate a net new one.
But you cannot do it in the closed period. Like
No, you have
do
to
it
open the
first.
period.
Create a journal entry in the new period.
Right.
And just do the offsetting of what was posted. So depending on what vendor bill or what transaction, you just create that offset in the open period and then just create a net new bill again.
I see. But it has to be done all in an open period.
Yeah, unless you want to reopen your periods, which you probably don't want to do.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that your reporting is a little wonky, right? Because you won't be able to trace back. You'll just have this journal entry that's sitting there with like the amount of the vendor bill or whatever it is, right? And you're like, what-
Sometimes the amount is small, it's not even worth it. Like the job will look like this one made more money, this one made less money, but really at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Also, the issue that sometimes happens is when you're doing your journal entry does not include an item. You can only post to a GL. Whereas in the vendor bill, you posted the
Oh,
expense
the
on
job.
top
But
to the
you
item
can,
also that you sent.
field at the line level, so you can always tag which vendor
Which project.
or even a job in that entity field, which allows you to trace it back. And typically, best practice sometimes is you can also put it in the description of like what was the document number that you are like offsetting. So even though it's not really linked back, you can still put it in the memo. Sometimes I know with some of our clients, we've also created like a custom field. It depends on how often it happens. So they have a custom field on the line level to just tag the transaction. So if it's offsetting, they're just tagging. It's a custom field. It's a transaction list record tag field, and they just tag the transaction at the line level, which can also help them.
Back to you, Adam. Comment.
So follow up so the problem I see, and maybe there's the problem with, we use like an average cost for our items. And then from my understanding, the item receipt and then the vendor bill are both affecting the average, the cost of the item. So if the item receipt is wrong, it's just based on what we've had current. Then now we get the bill and it's way higher. Now my item, my cost is gonna be kind of off moving forward in general with it.
But if you're posting, so it's gonna take the difference that you're posting in your journal entry, that's gonna offset it, right? So it's gonna make it match what was in the item, right?
Right, and I think I'm actually misunderstanding what I'm thinking. I think what happens actually sort of is that the price we have to actually manually enter ourselves or change. Only just what we put in. So for some reason, I was thinking that every time we enter a cost or I enter something, it's updating the price, but like that actually go pay the price once we get it in price. So never mind.
Oh,
I
okay.
understand.
Only when you're receiving it, right? You're receiving transaction or an
Yeah,
inventory
then
adjustment.
to the item. It's added. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I did-
Next one.
AI integration with NetSuite and impact on HIPAA or
Yeah, so this one, so thank you, Chandu, for answering the others, but you're off the hook on this one.
But I think we already talked about that a little bit based on the
Right.
question from down there.
Yes, yes. So I wanted to more open this up to the group because there's many different businesses here. And to be honest, Shandu and I work with a lot of clients, and there's not a lot of AI adoption with our clients right now because they're public companies. So they actually want NetSuite's AI turned up. Well, so opening it up to the overall group on a few of the questions here around AI, just for everybody's experience. So yeah, the impact on HIPAA and PETA as well, right? As the protection of information. I think, she just stepped out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what you can do though, like NetSuite does have the ability to obscure private information. So you could tell your OpenAI to just obscure it or only use IDs, not names or dates or actual information, and still do a lot of the analysis that you could use AI for. So there are ways around it, and also having a good contract with your AI vendor to make sure your data is not escaping is also super important.
I think that was still the advice, even at Sweet Connect, from the presenter as well, right? Like, go back and hold your LLM provider accountable, right?
And obscure your data. Like
Obscure.
if
Yeah.
you do get permission to connect it, make sure that you give it instructions to hide any data. Like it's the same with PCI, right? Like you still want credit cards going out into other systems. You don't want people's healthcare data to go out to other systems. We don't even want our customer data really to go into other systems. So we obscure most of it.
Another question was how to incorporate AI such as Claude into NetSuite. What can it do to help with budgeting and reporting. Is anyone doing AI budgeting and reporting through Cloud?
We use it for like flux analysis and stuff. So instead of like doing it all manually, they'll say, hey, go look at March versus April, tell me what's different. And it gives them a basis, right? It gives them a starting place. The person that's still doing the analysis or the reporting still reads it, makes sure it's accurate, but it's faster.
The last question around there is with the MCP. If any companies are using it for change management as well, documentation and change management. Interesting approach.
I love the question.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, can I? Yeah.
Can you do that?
Well, so like
Absolutely.
part of what I've been thinking about is we have processes around like creating new accounts, changing departments, blah, blah, blah. Right. So what I've been thinking about is can I link up my AI agent to the ticketing system that says, hey, I want a new department. And only when it's approved by the right people, then go create the department so that you don't have to do any actual work around it and it's all still being done the right way. So that's what I've been thinking about around this. And then for documentation, I was talking to our internal auditor about whether we can do like user access reviews through AI or if there's any tools for that. So we're still looking at those options, but we don't have one yet. But maybe someday.
There are tools in the marketplace. And you do screen capture, everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, but can we just like get an agent to do all of it?
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Build an SOP.
Yeah.
All right, awesome, great. Thank you for your feedback and stuff. Thank you for the questions. Shandu, thank you for the answers as well that you provided today. Shandu is a real, rising star in Kalpa and on my team as well. And I used to think I had a lot of experience with the NetSuite, being with in the environment for 10 years and running the team and everything. And then when I moved to Kalpa and met Shandu, then it was like, well, I'm blown away with the amount of knowledge that she has over the overall environment. So just fantastic. So thank you. Thanks for backing up. You're heading.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Jasper.
Yeah,
You're
how much time do I have, Mark?
about 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. All right, let me just kind of set the table a little bit. I'll stand up as well. Everybody knows my name by now?
Can they hear you on the?
Can they hear me? Am I loud enough?
You guys hear online as well, Jasper?
I'll sit down and get over it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Jasper. It's that Joe works in Canada, just like the talk. Everybody knows where that is. Hopefully, down there. I've attended a few NetSuite user groups over the past couple of months. I was in Indianapolis as well, and like a very viable user group community as well. I'm finding. Has anybody heard of Trailed specifically? Probably not, right? You have. AP automation, yeah, absolutely correct. Everybody's heard of AP automation. There's a plethora. There's a lot of solutions out there that do that. We're a little different. We all like to say that as well. Specifically, we're different because of where we originated from. We're an Australian company, so that's Geo, where we originated from. But we originated out of a fraudulent incident or two. So the founders of the company, in their going concerns, were subject to fraud to the tune of $300,000. Subsequently, a couple months later, one of the founders got a notification on their phone with respect to a credit card transaction that had happened, I think in Singapore. And then the light bulb went off. It's like, why can't we have a B2C type environment where we detect fraudulent activity in a B2B environment? That's really what started the whole journey with respect to Trail. We've only been around for since 2018. So they went to market and they tackle it in two specific ways. So when you think about AP automation, you think about it from the automation perspective, what we're talking about, but also from the financial control side. And if you look at the solution, there's four key areas with respect to financial control. There's the ingestion of the invoice, and that invoice can be taken in any way, shape, or form, like a drag and drop or an upload, primarily through an integration through the inbox. That's primarily what we're doing. And we're looking at every single data element that's being extracted from that PDF. Okay, we're looking for incidents potentially where the metadata has been compromised, where zero has been changed to 8, vice versa. We're looking at that data as it's being extracted and pulled. Right. The OCR engine, optical character recognition, I'll put a Looney in the swear jar, but use too many acronyms. So we're a fairly technical crowd here. We should be okay. The OCR engine is also, we built from the ground up. We're not licensing it from Google or someone else. We built it. It's purpose built for this. So what's relevant there is it does an extremely good job of extracting the data. It's not template reading. Okay? It's full AP automation. We classify the data as we break it. What that means, practically speaking, is you don't need to train the invoice with the supplier data. It knows firsthand on first pass. Typically 85 to 87% after the first pass, then 90 to 99% thereafter. Okay. So when you think about the ingestion of the invoice, that's the first financial control point, and of course, automation. Second is around the approval process. We've written a very good approval engine. I think it strikes a great balance of being sophisticated enough to do the job versus being easy to use as well. And you can't say that about all approval processes. I work across multiple ecosystems. I'm an ERP guy from my background. I've been involved with 5 or 6 different ERP solutions, both as a consultant as well as managing teams in those environments. And I've seen a lot of stuff. So when I look at the approval engine, it's pretty good. But that's also a control point as well. The third would be the supplier verification. So we'll look at the metadata specific to the data set that's in our systems. We've probably run $40 to $50 billion across our platforms. We're a global company. We also run millions of invoices well across that platform. So we know what an Amazon invoice should look like. Okay, so that metadata. So we're doing a compare and contrast, but we're also looking externally as well at supplier data. Probably 150 to 200 different data points or databases. So for instance, thou shalt not trade with that particular country. We all know who those are, particularly at one point in time. We're tracking that information and making sure that that supplier is verified specifically. And then the fourth would be around payments. Okay, so we'll extract the data directly from NetSuite. We pay it out from that trail as well, but we'll also provide an executive dashboard of those payment movements to say, hey, is this a payment ready for action? We'll look at the data again and say, is there something that should be there that's not there? Is there something that's compromised? Okay, so think about it from that point. We do on the automation side, coming back to that thread. Of course, we do the ingestion. We do a great job on the OCR side, but we also do 2-way and 3-way match. So we know, for instance, when you look at the dashboard, specifically the AP trade, which I'll tell you briefly, you can see very quickly which invoices have POs that have been seeded against those invoices. So it provides a little bit of black icon. It says, okay, that we found it that we received line within your NetSuite environment. We've matched them up to the invoice. So it allows the end user to know and to prioritize. We use a lot of color and a lot of signals for the end user, so the user adoption is very, very quick. In fact, and I've heard this a couple of times, it kind of makes me chuckle. I'll repeat it, it's kind of embarrassing, but people have said the environment is quite pretty. And it kind of makes me laugh. But what I think about when I think about that comment, if you think about an Apple device versus an Android device, I use an Android device, but a lot of people use Apple. It's clean and it's very devices are built specifically to have that ease of use, that beauty of use. And that's really what they're kind of pushing. It's all part of user adoption as well and enabling. Okay? So 2-way, 3-way match. as well as when you think about the allocations on the line level, we can provide multiple segments. I know that there are custom segments within the NetSuite ecosystem. We can extend the allocations on the line level as well, should there be allocations, segments that are specific to your environment. I see that with multiple customers as well. So there's a two-way, three-way match, but also around auto approval. So there was mention about automating processes. We can ingest an invoice and approve it in an automated fashion and pump it back into NetSuite without you running interacting. And that's both for purchase orders as well. So receipted goods, we can set purchase price variance and tolerances for those vendors that we trust, 0.75% or 1%, whatever it is, and it can be automated and auto approved. The caveat in all of that is that the risk algorithm is always looking at the data. So if there's a compromised incident, it's going to flag it out. It's not going to allow that at all. Okay. Any questions generally about that? I'll just give you guys a quick tour of the solution, but I just kind of want to set the table a little. Yeah. Yeah. It's not built on the NetSuite platform, but it allows auto approvals and push the data directly to NetSuite. Any other questions? We are building a vendor portal that comes out May 28th that will allow for that. Yeah, yeah. There's the other question that might come up as well is localization. Is everybody familiar with that term here? Currency language tax. So NetSuite does have some tools that are similar to what we're talking about here today, but primarily what I've found is that it's domesticated US. And when you get into other countries, they have some challenges with respect to localization. I have a client right now I'm working with, they're Canada, US. They asked us specifically, hey, can you guys do UK pound, etc. Yeah, we can absolutely operate globally. For Australian, we're in Australia, we're also in North America. Cross multiple systems, which I won't mention who those are, because we're in NetSuite today. So there you go. So let's have a quick peek. I'm just going to share. Can I share as well, Mark?
Yep. Let me give you the permission. Okay.
Right, a little bit of sleep, so just give me a minute. Pop this a little bit. Can everybody see that?
Not yet.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm sharing, right? We're not sharing the screen anymore.
Yep. Just bringing it over.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm unmuted, obviously. Okay, should be okay.
I think you have to turn on your here.
Try one more time.
Did you mute yours as well?
How about now?
We're good?
Yeah. So don't unmute yours.
No, we'll leave it as is. We're good?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. So you can see the environment here specifically, you can see the NetSuite environment here. Obviously, you're very familiar with that. We've incorporated a custom menu structure along the left-hand side. I'm not going to get for today's presentation. I'm going to stay away from that. A lot of detail there. I'm going to minimize that, which provides you more landscape specifically in the environment. Here specifically, you can see the AP intro. Okay. And you can see that black icon that I was referencing, which tells us specifically the end user, the AP clerk, AP analyst, tells them that that's a PO received line there specifically. So we use color and so forth to enable the individual end user experience and rapid user adoption of the solution. Down here at the bottom, I can see that it's auto approves. That's an invoice example that's been approved specifically in an automated fashion. If I open up this specific line directly here by selecting the invoice number here, that's going to open up the environment, and I can play with this environment a little bit here. You can see a digital copy of the invoice that's brought in specifically. You can provide supporting documentation for that if you will. A digital copy of this invoice plus the individual commentary particular to this invoice will travel directly into your NetSuite environment. Okay, and that becomes important perhaps for automation, etc. So this information here, this activities, that's a chat panel. Okay, and that is encrypted, but it is also once you write that, it's permanent. So it's permanent ink. Okay. So that's good for audit, but that's also good for communication outside of email because we know that email is where the compromises happen. I get an email from someone saying, "Hey, the boss of the company, Mr. Whalen, he said you should buy some gift cards." Well, and then me and Mr. Whalen don't get along that well, so it's I know it's kind of a fraud incident, perhaps, but that's where it's happening, right? Inside of email, we provide that communication directly within the application. Here in the middle section here, let me just minimize this a little bit more of the screen here. Okay, we can see the goods section here specifically. Okay, so if I select this, we can, again, the use of color here, that 4 is indicating 4 lines on the particular invoice, and it brings those individual select lines directly into the application. And you can see the allocations along here. Use the GL code. I know you guys are account code for that sort. We can change the nomenclature in the application as well to be particular to the environment that you guys are using. We can also, as I said, provide the ability to allocate across custom segments. Okay. You'll see here, for instance, things like this line splitting functionality. You also have the ability at the header level to split the invoice. We talked a little bit about project costing a little bit earlier. So that might be an area where you want to split the individual lines. You can split those lines and you can allocate it 50-50, 60-40. You can allocate it 3 ways, etc. And it's the important thing, it's going to remember a couple different things. It's going to remember that splitting function. So if you're running a bunch of invoices for a project for a period of extended time, it's going to remember that allocation of those splits until you interrupt that. And with the machine learning, it's going to pick up the new way that you want to categorize that. Okay, as well as the allocations on the line specifically, how you select them. It's going to remember that going forward as well. That's the machine learning behind the scenes that's occurring. Okay. And also, if you look at a different example here, I have one loaded here. That's a handwritten invoice. Okay, you know who wrote that? That's me. I wrote that invoice. Okay, it's not as bad as my dad's handwriting, but it's close. It's picked up. For instance, if you select this line here, this is an example of the classification engine that's saying, hey, best match scenario, that's the invoice number. If I look at that number myself, it looks like 19769. It's actually not. It looks like a 01, but in reality, it's 69. So it's better at reading my handwriting than my AI or I'm 55, so maybe that's suspect as well. In any case, you can see the example of the classification engine that's picking up the individual data elements on the individual form. To the point, if I add the individual lines from the invoice specifically, it's going to pick up those individual lines specifically for the invoice. Okay. say screen a little too small to care all of that. It picks up the individual line specific to the invoice. So that's a couple different examples of what's going on. We have very compressed time here, but so those are the invoice that's been adjusted. It's picked up all the individual data elements specifically. It's allowed you to allocate in a different way. It's allowed you to split out the individual invoices. It's going to learn from your interaction as well. Once that invoice is approved, you're gonna hit submit and approve that invoice specifically. Down here. Down further here, you're gonna submit this invoice for approval. And then it's gonna travel to the next step of the process. Whoever is in the approval chain to approve that individual invoice. Once that's approved, it's gonna be auto exported directly into CANSUG. If there is a challenge or an issue with the individual invoice, it's gonna and it's going to flag it and color code it specifically to say there's a challenge with this particular invoice. I believe I may have one here loaded. You can see here, pending review. I do not have one here. Back to trade here. Have this auto approved here. What's left here? Okay. So you can see this one here, for instance, it's an invoice that's been auto approved. It's telling us that's a low risk invoice. It's also giving some trend analysis and so forth. If this was an invoice that had a challenge specifically, it will flag it either orange or red and will actually give you some notes with respect to why that was perhaps flagged up as a cautionary note or as a, red means stop. Maybe we shouldn't process this invoice. We should ask for commentary directly on the invoice about that particular invoice, or we should in fact delete it or get rid of it if it's a duplicate. Okay. So it's built all of that technology into the application. And if you think about the application and the use and the enablement of it, it's very easy to use and very quick adoption of the solution based on the way they've built out the solution color, as well as the notes and so forth that are built to know what to do with the invoice and process. Okay. From here, it will go through an approval process. The approval process can be multi-layered. You can also stack conditions specifically. If I open up the gear icon here, you can see the approval process. If I open up a quick rule here and look at this one here, for example, here, this is for invoices that are greater than 10K. Okay. And I can stack the digits. So greater than 10K for a number of different vendors or suppliers. And then I can also set out multiple levels, up to 7 different levels for the approval process specifically. Okay, so that's to my point earlier, where I think it strikes the balance of being sophisticated enough to handle the approval process, while also being relatively straightforward to use. Okay. There's more under the cover here, but we're not going to get into that today due to lack of time. Okay. And then you have, of course, the other components as well, the supplier verification interface as well. Verifications here, and then also the payment verification as well, where you can do the actual payment batch that they're going to come in here, and you can decipher which of these individual payments are okay to pay. So if I open up this one here specifically, there's some warnings that are showing here in this particular batch. I can see for a particular individual supplier, I can see all the invoices that are going to be paid. I can drill into the individual invoice, can drill into the approval chain as well. And I can also see those individual flags, again, orange and red, indicating that there's a challenge perhaps with this batch. As controller, I might have some question marks around that, and I can add notes, so forth, and I can decide or determine what I'm going to do with that particular batch, whether I'm going to approve that or not approve that for specific payment. Green means typically go. As a former controller, I would still look at this batch, of course, because of the size of the batch. It's material, obviously, $680,000. That's material in my world. I definitely have a closer look at that individual batch to make sure that everything is okay with that in the text. Okay. Just a real quick thing here as well, go back to payments specifically. And I look at individual approved payments. Okay, and I look at this one here specifically. You can see for a batch that's going to be paid, you have a series of different payment methods that are shown here: check, wire, e-card, etc. And if that payment batch is good to go, you can execute payment for the entire batch. one fell swoop. Okay. I'll stop there. Any questions? I know that's a flying whistle stop tour. Appreciate it, Mark, and appreciate it, group. I know that we kind of got to strike the balance of sponsoring an event and getting a product in front of people, so to speak. And I also want to be respectful of time to do your crew. But if you've got questions, you know, my name is Jasper. Those companies thrilled. There's swag here. Please do take that home with you. If I have a copious amount of it, I left a bunch in Minneapolis yesterday as well. But hey, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure, and all questions welcome. Any quick questions before we move on?
A good question. So how does the invoice get into the system right now? Because we don't have the vendor portal. How do the
Integration to your AP box. That's primarily 95+% of applications go that route, but you can drag and drop, and you can also upload as well. Example of why you might do that: get snail mail. Everybody know what snail mail is, right? You might want to stack them, put them through the scanner, bring them to the PDF, and we have splitting technology that can split it all up. We're gonna have a vendor portal over here for that. Yeah, and the invoice can be multiple pages. So FedEx is classic, and you know, if you're smiling already, you know what I mean. So an invoice can be multi-page, counted as one invoice. Yeah, and the other thing is we have unlimited users as well. So if you're a NetSuite user, you don't need to be a NetSuite user. So it's unlimited user, so that's great for the implementation. Yeah, and the implementation, I would call it an activation, is $2,950 $60, but not time and material under that term here.
So much is going
I would say it's probably in the 95-cent range, depending where you get to. If you scale up and it's, you know, thousands of invoices, becomes more reinforced. No. We're applying to 20, 30,000. Now the invoice a year, that's 5,000 a month. Correct. We have 1,500 customers globally. Absolutely. If you want to have a look at it, I'll send you my contact information. I do actually have a physical card.
I would vision stuff.
Okay.
Embarrassed.
I don't know it.
You don't know.
No, I don't.
They're very similar, but it's not integrated.
Okay.
And I'm like, neither one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's really easy to evaluate. We just strike a demo, because we do a mini discovery at the front end. We're one and done, probably in 55 minutes. And then it's really determined on the individual to say, hey, we want to scope this a bit more, do a follow on. But it's a very straightforward proposition, and yeah, we're low key, not a high pressure organization. We do probably 135 to 150 new logos per quarter. So we've got a lot going on. I'd love to look at your business. Any other questions? I know that was a whistle stop tour, but you're a technical crowd, so yeah.
You don't do the payment process.
We do payments now. Yeah. 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 And it's, we do as well, yeah. Yeah. We are also, if it matters, we're integrated to e-invoice in Europe as well. We are also building AI agents. I know everybody is as well. We do statement reconciliation. So the statement is scanned in a similar manner to the invoice. If there's missing stuff, everybody's done a statement reconciliation or bank rec. They're fun for about the first 2 times, and then it's not so much more fun anymore. We have an AI agent we're building into it that will reach out to the supplier and ask for the missing invoices and so forth. We're building and incorporating those AI agents elsewhere to completely automate the platform. So we have a team in Tel Aviv, a very smart team, about 30 to 40 programmers here. Really honed it now. Anyway, I'll stop. Unless there's other questions.
That's awesome, Jasper. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sponsoring. And we don't share our membership list with our sponsors. So if you're interested, speak to Jasper,
Yeah.
get his contact information, how to connect as well, while we're here.
Okay.
And don't forget to take the swag that he's left at the end of the table
Yeah.
as well. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So at this point in the agenda, let's take a 10-minute break and we'll reconvene at 10 after 11. Okay. Awesome.
Oh,
Okay, all right, let's resume. And I think I am up actually. So I'm going to go through some safe search formulas. So we all know safe searches. It's like endless possibilities. It's one of the best things that I love out of NetSuite. It's just so flexible to get data. Can also be very frustrating to get that data and find the right fields and everything. And so we're going to focus strictly on formulas. And like we could run the gambit on, right, on formulas, but we're going to go through some of the basics first and then some other things that, hey, I didn't know I could actually do that in a safe search. And then we'll bring that end state over to the dashboard where it's it can be a game changer for some groups, like maybe not necessarily everybody in this room, but within your organization. So like sales leaders or leadership management, or right down to I'm trying to get products out the door and I don't know how many are on my dock or in my warehouse or being picked right now or actually shipped. So some of those cool little metrics can all be done through safe searches and cool little formulas too. Okay. So I'm going to not spend a lot of time on slides, but I have like basically 6 different examples that I've created. And again, going from easy, simple stuff. You might say, Mark, we all have invoice aging buckets for AR already. But I want to just show you that you can do this stuff, not necessarily native NetSuite, but you can do customizations through safe searches and use a formula to show that. And the flexibility on using that in a safe search is dashboards pushing information out. It's sending email alerts on certain data points as well. We're not going to get into that portion of it, but that's why I like to focus formulas and safe searches, because again, sky's the limit for this one. So so we're going to go through a few different things. So like you've got POs, you've got item receipts, but you haven't done a vendor bill. You haven't created that yet. So you've got an accounts payable sitting out there. Your invoice buckets, aging buckets, helping AR, your average days to pay as well. Project cost overburns, just touching on that one a little bit. I wasn't able to really set up my environment properly to really do projects, but hearing some of the conversations, we maybe need to do more on projects and more construction-based stuff and how to manage costs in there. And I think that's a great topic for future. I also heard bring Procore in and let's do a little bit of a session on that, see what the possible is out of that too. Fantastic. We're going to like customer and not really customer dashboard, but customer cards and record links, and then clickable links within that. Like we all like safe search summaries, but I hate going into the summary and then you come back out and then you go back into the summary. It's that convoluted way of going back and forth. I'll show you a little tip and trick with a formula to be able to do that in a much better way. And then lastly, some transactions. So more dashboard-ish, but showing me a view. What is my customer doing for all transactions within NetSuite in one spot? So, and make it a little bit more pretty than I've got, a bunch of tabs and a bunch of things to kind of go through and a bunch of clicks to get there. So that's kind of what I want to show for the next 20 minutes or so. So let's go into NetSuite. And we've got lots of test data. So this is our Canadian NetSuite user group. Being a user group, NetSuite provides us with one instance. I can't add a lot of users, but I can add 5 users, and it's typically our board members. And I've taken some of our board members and the companies that we work for and put their items and their vendors in our system, and then kind of, some fake customers out there that as Canadians, you'll recognize too. Let me shrink this down a little bit so we can kind of see some of the data. So, okay, is that still viewable with you guys? And I know a lot of you are in Teams as well and watching stuff. So my first one is just missing, so POs missing vendor bills. And you can see I've added a field here just with VB status, so our vendor bill status. So is it okay? Bills not received, or received, not billed, received, not billed. How did I do that? Let me edit the search and show the formula. I will say NetSuite did not give us the fastest instance to work with. We are a user group, but I haven't seen it this slow.
Sometimes it's going to be on Teams too, the double.
Could be double. Yeah. Okay. All right. So this is just a transaction save search. I've got item type is item receipt right now. And the rest is basically our lines, and we're all setting those to false except for posting. In our results, basic fields, right? Like this is kind of the default document number, your period, your name, your account, and cost. And here is my case statement. So case when the type, and that's the record type that I'm looking at, is an item receipt, and the applying transaction internal ID, if it is null, so basically my applying transaction is my vendor bill, it does not exist, then say received but not billed. Else, okay, like we have billed it. Okay, so very, very simple. It's just a case like when this happens, do this, else do something else. So very, very simple. But it shows a concept of this applying transaction, which is maybe something new if you're doing save searches. A very good technique to look, behind applied transaction to applying transactions, back and forth with that chain of transactions in NetSuite. Okay, everybody following me with that kind of description? Okay. All right, so really straightforward. That one pretty easy. And I will. I've got all of these case statements or formulas, and I'll update another spreadsheet, and I'll post that when we post the whole recording and everything. So you'll have all of this, okay, documented. So no need to take notes and stuff. Feel free. Okay, invoice aging buckets, number 2. So again, really straightforward. This is another case statement where I'm looking at invoice aging, and I have multiple buckets that would be important to my business. So is it current? Is it not due yet? Am I 1 to 30? Am I 31 to 60? And then 60 to 90 and above. So very simple formula there. And we are utilizing the invoice on this one. And I did restrict this one because with an AR balance, you only want to look at open invoices as well, not fully paid invoices. So getting a little bit deeper on the, I'll make it a little bit bigger, a little easier to see. So case when overdue is less than 0, that's going to be current. When overdue is between, and it's really simple language in this, between 1 and 30, then say 1 to 30. Overdue between 31 and 60, 31 and 60, etc. So, and these are changeable buckets, just data. So whatever means that you need to take a look at that and what you're categorizing your aged buckets are, then go ahead, right? Modify that. Again, very simple, straightforward, but use of a case statement. All right, number 3. Average days to pay, again, pretty straightforward. And I left this one as not a summary save search, just a flat save search. So it's really just looking at each document, but you would want to collapse that, sum it all up to see what's the average day for this client, not necessarily average days per invoice that's coming out, what those days are. That's not an average, that's just the days that they pay. Let's edit this one. Again, this is the invoice and posting, and I made this all open as well, but I could exclude anything that's pending and open and just look at the paid for those results. So this one, again, when case when the applying transactions transaction date is not null. So that means there's no payment on it. Or sorry, there is a payment on it. Then get the transaction date from that payment minus your transaction date, and just straight math in NetSuite will, and well, I guess the SQL on this will just give you the number of days, right? And if it does not find it, then make it null. So how I would bring this to the next level is start to do a summary on my name. So summary type would just be group by, and then start to do the formula as an average. And then it's going to start to look at all of the invoices that I have and what are those average days to pay by customer. So again, pretty straightforward, right? Everybody doing this now, you're looking at your average pays, right? I would hope if you're in accounting and finance, you've got that already locked and loaded, okay? But this is showing you formulas where you're looking at like null or not null in the system, 0 or I have not found a transaction in the system. Okay. Number 4 is the project cost overrun. And like I said earlier, I didn't set up, like I just loaded projects actually last night into this instance and had to add a custom field for the cost, your overall budget on your project as well, because native NetSuite does not have that. So I had to add that and then use that as part of the formula. So on this one, I'm looking at actually all transactions, and I'm looking at a specific company project, but you could look at it, you could grab all projects or everything that is a project and have it as a more holistic view on this one. And this one is looking at, I'm looking at a field here, and that was a good example from Rebecca earlier, because I created a new field, and what did I call it? I put my initials on it, so I know it's my field that I created as well in the name, and estimated underscore cost. So it's easy to find. If you're training your AI, much easier to go and find that than just estimated cost, because estimated cost could be a field of many different transactions within NetSuite. So if that's 0, then no estimate. And when the amount is greater, so that's the amount, the number of transactions against it as a total is greater than the estimated cost, then say over budget, else you're within budget. If we just go and ran that, all it is it's just grouping this. So this is a sum save search. So I'm grouping it by this project here, my estimated cost. This was my field that I added within NetSuite, and just comparing all transactions that have been associated with that project. So whether it's time, whether it's journal entries, whether, no matter what the transaction, all the vendor bills, your sales order, invoice, all of that, and it would come up and be part of that overall budget. Okay? Now, we all know that this is a very simple example, but in projects like in construction, where you have many projects, and this would, you would have many more identifiers on your project record and tracking the cost and your actual costs and percentage of where the project is as well. Okay? So very simple.
A couple previously we've done one for burn rate. We track our agency fees for service and do it color coded by getting close, it's over, it's good. So, and it's on all of our team dashboards so that they can look at it, and the color should alert them to check into stuff.
And yeah.
You're not using the advanced budgeting process.
No, not with this instance here, and our clients' ones, of course. Yes,
Right.
Absolutely. Yes.
That's like working well for them, or
Yeah, Shandy, if you can.
So the advanced one is a little bit because you are doing budgets based on the accounts. It's not actually using like the transactions. So sometimes for them, they have different cost categories, like the contractors, time entered. So they break it down super granular that it's very hard to just do budgeting by the GL account. The native NetSuite budget does not work for them. So we did a small customization to have like a budget record that actually tracks what the individual cost code and cost type budgets are for that project.
And what Stephanie was talking about, like making things color coded, and that if you're in your saved searches, under highlighting, then you can pick certain conditions in that as well. So, which is great. Your visuals are awesome, especially if things are red. And when they're green, it's also good to celebrate when you've got good data there, and good projects. So we won't be going into the highlighting and stuff, but I pointed out. Okay. Average days pay, did that one. Oh, got a few out of order here. Hold on. When did I leave off? Okay. That's when it's super handy to name your saved searches. Very well. I think I'm on this one now. Okay, so this saved search, let's take a look at this one first. This is looking at all specific transactions. So I'm looking at invoices, payments, RMAs, and I don't know why I added sales orders, but I did. The statuses of those as well. So kind of shrinking things a little bit. I wanted to more see after a product is shipped. So what are the sales based on invoice? What payments have been received against those? And the RMAs against those invoices as well in the system. Okay. And my results are really simple case statements. I'm grouping into 3 new columns because I am making this across multiple different transactions. If I just have amount on there without segregating it, I'm just going to have a lump sum, and it's going to total all my invoices, all my payments, all my returns, and not separate that out easily. So I can use a formula in this case because I want all the data in the same area or on the same saved search result. So I do a case when the type is invoice, then display the amount. And I have the summary as invoice there. Do the same thing with payment, do the same with return authorization. That way I get my 3 columns across the top as to Hudson Bay is invoiced 44,000. Okay, a little bit dated. Hudson Bay in here still.
Not anything.
No. Yeah, notice there's no payment. Boathouse Longo is that way. So here it's segregated it into 3 lump sums, and then it's a good view. Okay, so this, if I had, and I don't have a lot of data in this instance against each, but if I looked at like Boathouse and I click on this, and you're drilling down in NetSuite, right? Now you're seeing all of the transactions. And if I take a look, I know I only have 1 invoice, 1 payment, but if I have hundreds of invoices, payments, returns, you have to kind of sort through all of that to actually see what's the data that's making up that number in my saved search. So not a great way of doing it. Okay, so there are different ways, and I don't know, like maybe get a show of hands. Did you know that in a saved search, you can call another saved search? No? A lot of shaking heads. Okay. All right, so let's go to our next one, clickable links. So in this saved search, now you'll notice here's Boathouse and list of invoices, 21,000. It's a clickable link. Okay. We've got payments. I may have some, oh yeah, so I just paid all of their invoices just for, I didn't leave any balances, but trust me, there's an invoice there and there's no payments by that boy, okay? Same with Hudson Bay. They are still delinquent and not paying the invoices. So if I go ahead and I click on this, and I'm gonna right click and bring it up into a new tab. There's the list of invoices. It's picked an internal ID. I know that this one is Hudson's Bay, and I'm only seeing Hudson Bay's invoice here as well. Now, you would, if they had many invoices, you would see all of Hudson's Bay's invoices here. And this is actually a different save search.
Oh, I
So
knew that.
If you see the name up here, this is advanced formulas. Number 5 is the invoice list.
Just,
So we're calling to another one.
we do that. We just,
Good.
we just didn't get
Excellent.
involved.
Okay. Okay. Now, how did we do that? So this save search has a specific URL here, and you can copy this URL and put it into a formula in another save search, and that's how you do these separate calls. So let's take a look at the results on this one, and now we're getting much more complicated, but it's really just HTML calls in a formula HTML. My summary type is now maximum because I know within that group, I'm not summing a whole bunch. I'm just giving the total, okay? Because I'm doing that sum actually inside the formula, okay? So it gets a little bit difficult to read, but this is just an HTML link call. And then within that, when you do the pipes, you can put data in there. So I'm saying everything internal ID of the name ID, which is going to be whatever row I'm on, whatever the internal ID is on that row for that customer. That's what I'm going to take, and I'm going to pass through to that URL link, which knows that, oh, when I'm in this state, he means put it into a filter and apply that internal ID on the filter. So that other search is dynamic now. I'm feeding it what you would call a parameter, right, into the URL, okay? And then what I'm doing in here also is I'm summing when the case type is still invoice, like from the previous example, then sum that now, okay? Otherwise, don't do it. And I've got some formatting there just to make it look a little bit pretty and stuff too. So you can do rounding, you can do whatever you want with that, okay? And so I just do it a few times as to like the second one, it's the exact same as the first one, except now my type is payment. Easy, copy paste. We've talked a lot about AI. AI is excellent at coming up with this in the right format, because even doing it and doing this demo, it's coming up and it's like, it's not working. It says invalid expression, and it doesn't tell me actually what's wrong with it. And I've got this big formula, and it's even more complicated because there's HTML code in here and I'm passing a parameter. I just copy pasted that and I sent it to ChatGPT, said, in NetSuite, I'm doing a save search, I'm getting an invalid expression on this. Where's my problem? And then it comes back and it says, well, Mark, you forgot a space here between your one variable and the end, or the R, or the pipe, or something there. It's just something simple. It's hard to just visualize and see that. Amazing use of AI to just, I don't want to spend 20 minutes figuring this out. Just tell me the answer. I know what I'm doing, but I just don't know where I've gone missing.
Mark, would the same apply in analytics where you do calculations?
100%.
Yes.
We're getting
Excel formulas, analytics, like anything where you need a formula and you're like, I don't know,
yeah.
put it in AI, it'll tell you the
I
formula.
can't use this formula. Like, but we need to use the formula.
That's right.
Okay.
It may take some
Sometimes,
iteration.
yes, sometimes it takes 3 asks on it.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can be that, but.
Right. But it's good to lead with it, right? So I have a conversation with it and say, great. That was a good suggestion. I tried it, did not work. This is what I am using now. And then it looks at like the most current version, and then it builds like maybe 2 or 3 times. Then it's like, we got it now. Use this one.
Yeah. And if you give it a little preamble too, it'll sometimes come back faster. So if you say, hey, don't make stuff up. I need a formula that does that in this tool. This is my formula. How do you make it work? it'll be faster than if you just ask it the formula question without the preamble. Like just give it some like guidance for.
And sometimes when you do this troubleshooting for the formulas, it gives you a runaround. Came to the first option. So I found that you can break this by posting screenshot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, screenshots and giving it the exact error messages helps it.
Okay, thank you.
this fixes it.
Yeah, it's all guidance, right? It's like,
Well, in our,
it's so much information.
it's so simple, but we can't get there.
Yes.
Or could you also clarify for that safe search that you linked, can you remind if you need to put the filter in the other one?
You do. You do have to have the filter. Yeah. In this, so here in my available filters, I've got my internal ID as my first filter, and you have to show it in the region. You can't hide it. And I believe it needs to be the first one, or in order for your parameters being passed through as well. There's some trickiness there when you pass multiple parameters if you get to that situation.
So we can follow the the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, last one, concatenating some data. And I'm not just doing the easy, simple, you've probably done it, concatenated things, and it just puts information and it's, here's some information, comma, here's my next information, comma, here's my next information. You bring some field data together. That's good. It's good for grouping. But I found it a little bit better, like say in this example, where I have, it's just too long, too lengthy. So if I have commas and everything, it's just too hard to read. So I thought, okay, we'll do line breaks then. So here I'm grouping it by customer, and I'm showing items and quantity, but I'm showing different items that have been on invoices or purchased on different rows, all within the same field. Okay. Here I've got like a finance summary, just leveraging the last couple of queries, my sum of my invoices, my payments, my RMAs for the period. Here I've got this one was, and I tried this one at the last, so I didn't title this one, but it's by vendor. So maybe my split by vendor percentage, because maybe you want to look at your customer holistically, and you've got a number of, you're a distributor or wholesaler. What's the number of sales, or you could do it as percentage or whatever by vendors. And again, put a filter on this for period. And then you've got a much better revenue look for it. So let's take a quick look at how I did this one. And again, I'm using HTML on this one. And it gets a little bit more complicated when you're, but there's this list aggregate within SQL that you can use. List aggregate, you probably will not see it used too much in NetSuite, or referencing that you can use it in NetSuite, but most language, SQL language, you can bring forward and use it here in your save searches. So I'm doing a list aggregate on this one, and then I am, where did it do it? Here in the HTML is the line break. So I'm breaking up the lines here. So again, it's kind of building out the whole formula, and then when you use the HTML formula, it's looking for the different tags. And this, in your brackets there, the BR is a line break. Okay, so that's how your browser interprets it. It enters that line break. Otherwise, I'm really just using this list aggregate, what you would use to just normally concatenate. So if you didn't want, a line break, you can use something else as well. Okay. You can also, because this is HTML, you could color code it in here as well as a different color, or a bold it, right? Just bold that number if it's important, or it's like your percentage by vendor and it's the top vendor, and highlight that one, right? That's the top one. You want to create these visuals within the save searches that make it super powerful. Okay, so you don't want to go into too much of that one, but when you start to, like, in the same search, it might not look all that special, but think of the different columns and groups of data that you can use, because once you pull this onto your dashboard, and now you've got a better list of data, or call them cards. You're almost creating a customer card as to this is my summary for where the customer is. But take it beyond that and think of I'm a warehouse manager and I need to know and group like who's picking what orders are coming to the warehouse now, what orders are sitting on the dock but not marked shipped, what are marked shipped. And then you can see on this, you've got a much better live dashboard as to what's coming out of my locations and how busy are my locations. And then imagine you're a warehouse manager responsible for many different locations. That would be a better scorecard than anything that I've seen native in NetSuite managing, high traffic of goods in and out of a warehouse. So I'm trying to plant the seed as to these are some of the things that you can do. It's up to you to get creative, right, with users as to what data do they need to see and what's a better way of showing it off. Okay. All right. Any questions around that?
Ability already.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. Yeah. When it comes to a dashboard, it looks much better, much cleaner as well. I wanted to break that in. And I've seen some customers use this, and then they've actually just got one card, and then they show all the data on the customer. And all you're doing is just scrolling through your customers. All right. Cool. All right. Next up is we have Paul, OptimalData Consulting. So thanks for being here, Paul. Paul's up from Austin, Texas. So
I'm sorry that the weather.
I'm gonna make it so I can share.
Yeah. As you.
I met Paul. We were doing our third integration implementation with NetSuite because of just changing organizations, merging, unmerging, and so we're going to pop together.
Yeah, I'm gonna sound this stand. All right. Yeah. So my name's Paul. I'm the founder of OptimalData Consulting, and I'm going to talk to you guys about the CSV import tool, which is the most exciting topic in NetSuite besides AI. So I think before we start, I want to set a scenario that Stephanie and I had at our Suite World conference. So imagine you're a day into your month-end close and you realize that your accounting team just entered 200 invoices into NetSuite using all of the old SKUs. And you suddenly realize, actually, we need to go back and fix all those. Maybe think about how you would fix that and just kind of the time that it would take to kind of address that issue. So, and a woman came up to us at Suite World and had this exact scenario. And her approach was to create a bunch of credit memos to offset the original impact and then create all new invoices, which sounded, sounded like a pretty painful approach. And my initial thought was, well, why not just do an update upload? And so my goal today is that you guys would all leave, that if you're ever in that scenario, you would know the steps to update item records, the item lines on an invoice that exists in NetSuite. Okay, so here's my high-level agenda. Talk about some of the use cases for updating records, kind of the theory of how you would update records, or how my approach. We've got two specific scenarios that we'll go through, and then open it up for questions. So, why should you guys listen to what I have to say about this topic? So, I've helped over 100 companies, including Stephanie and a couple of my hacks clients, migrate data from their respective legacy systems into NetSuite. And at this point, I've probably created over 1 million records across the 100 projects. So I live and breathe in the NetSuite in the CSV import tool. So these are some common use cases that I've seen with my clients for why you might want to go back and update some existing transactions. So the first is a client incorrectly created a contra AP account as an accounts payable account type. Now all those journal entries are showing up in their AP aging when they really don't want that noise in the aging. And so what you could do is create a new account and then do an update upload to move all those journals to the new contra AP account set up as an other current liability. Another use case would be we've mapped the departments from the old system to an incorrect department in NetSuite. So this would impact, might impact your P&L for SEC reporting. And so one of the tricks that I like to do whenever I'm migrating data into NetSuite is to create a custom field on the line level that preserves that that string. So that way, if the client does make a mistake or I make a mistake on the mapping, you can just pull a save search with that kind of legacy segment and then just do an X lookup to add the right internal ID for the account or department, and then just process an update upload. Or with Fuse, we forgot to include project tasks on the vendor bill lines, and so I think the team was like, "Hey, our P&L by project is wrong," and so because we had preserved the line ID from the original NetSuite instance, we just did a quick update upload where we added the project task and assigned it to the vendor bill line. Okay, so why do this? Well, the first one is the most obvious. They save time, and I don't know anyone who wants to manually click through 100 invoices. Another reason is, with the AI features that are coming out, the Oracle documentation states that they need 18 months of data to run properly. And so you might want to go back if you've had some kind of restructuring, or your data isn't, the segments aren't quite right. You can go back and update that information. Or, the third one is just kind of the management reporting. I've had a couple of clients that have brought me on where they said, "Hey, we've changed our department structure for the year-over-year comparisons or budget versus actuals. We want to kind of go back and change the coding on some of the old transactions." Okay, so let's talk through kind of the general approach that I typically take. Mark was talking about saved searches. My preferred approach to kind of getting all of your data. You want to identify and use those filters to say, okay, these are the transactions that we want to modify. The analytics workbook can also be really helpful, and the primary reason is it supports multiple joins. So an example of this is I had a client where in their QuickBooks data, they didn't track the class, and the CFO wanted to add the class based on the P&L transactions projects class. And so that you could do that with, I think, 2 saved searches, but we ended up creating an analytics workbook that supported kind of that chain all the way down. So you only have one file to kind of extract all the data. And the other nice thing about that workbook, where it's in a single workbook, is once you refresh the workbook after your data loads, you can see like, hey, there's no results now in the workbooks. You know that at least everything updated. Now, the CFO had to go and check that the data was actually right, but we at least knew that, hey, all of the P&L transactions in the historical data that had a project assigned, that were a project had a class, now had a class assigned to it. And then I know we've talked a lot about AI. I've had a lot of success. Okay, so actually, let me take a step back. Once you've extracted your data out of NetSuite, then you need to manipulate that file and prepare your CSV import templates back into NetSuite. So I've had a lot of success with ChatGPT. If you've got, to say, hey, can you format these? Because each transaction type will need its own import template back into NetSuite. For anybody who is new to saved searches or is kind of experimented. I'll kind of show a before and after. You can see here the defaults. The field finder on a save search on the left is horrible, or not, it's not horrible, but it's not user friendly. Horrible. And so the Chrome extension here with this URL is a free plugin for Google Chrome. If you don't have that, you should absolutely get that. It's free. I also there's a tool called Suite Advanced that it's $8 a month. It's a very good tool that it has some other features in it as well. I've been a customer of his for a couple of years. And so you can see the difference, and just makes using save searches significantly. Okay, so now it's actually preparing the CSV import template. So as I mentioned earlier, each transaction record type will need its own upload file. Items are a good example. There's a lot of different item types, and each one has its template. I always recommend that you use the internal or external ID in your uploads. One thing kind of when you're running update uploads is you also want to sort your file by the internal ID. A couple of weeks ago, I had a client where we were updating purchase order lines, and it was taking like 20 hours to update. And we thought that maybe it was a workflow, but then we realized I the update, downloaded the file, and then resorted it by the internal ID, and then it finished in 45 minutes. And it was because a lot of these POs had like 50 lines on them, and because it wasn't sorted right, it was hitting one PO 50 times. So that can have a big performance impact. You also want to understand you're updating header data versus line level data. If you are updating line level data, you do need that line ID so that NetSuite knows which line to update when you're processing your update upload. And then, as I mentioned earlier, it's a good idea to store that original segment value in a custom field. You're kind of going back and changing existing data. So that way, if something goes wrong, you have kind of that data preserved in a good spot. So you can always kind of go back. I guess maybe a question for the group. I mean, how many people have uploaded? How many people have used the CSV import tool before? Okay. Well, so most of you guys have used it. So it's under the setup and the import export section. A couple tips that I always recommend is you want to save your template, because most likely you will, or if it's the first time, you will definitely get some cryptic errors. One of my kind of a more advanced feature that I learned about a couple of years in at OptimalData was the override sublist functionality. And that's a really powerful feature that essentially it allows you to just override everything that's on the given transaction and kind of replace it with the new lines. And so think about, like, if you make a mistake on your payroll journal entry, if you don't check that button and you upload your template again, it's just going to append the line, so you're doubling everything. But with that override sublist button checked, it will kind of delete and then replace those lines. I think before I knew about that functionality, I would go back and delete all the transactions, and so that was not the best way. Another, I recommend to do everything in the sandbox first. Actually, if you're going to be opening periods, anything that is more complex, definitely recommend doing in a sandbox. And then I always run one or two transactions first, because you want to make sure nothing's getting stuck in a workflow, or that if you want things to be going through a workflow, those transactions are processing correctly. That way you can also validate the import doesn't have any user mistakes, and then there's no kind of unintended integration impact when you're creating these transactions. And keep in mind, you might also need to open the posting period you're going back.
I have a question. So say I uploaded the payroll and I used the wrong period, for example, and now I doubled what I already previously had imported. And how can I just delete that import altogether
and start fresh.
How many
Is there a
records?
way or no?
Wait, how many records are you talking about?
Say 200,
So
200 lines.
there's a sneaky way to delete lines on the NetSuite screen. So if it's like 200, you can just put them in, put the little edit on and be like, oh, delete all those records. Or you could just write a script to do it.
There's a free script from tech, that I've used that I think deletes it. I have a blog article that goes through how to do the inline editing to delete. You can either do it one by one. I mean, if it's 200, that wouldn't make sense. But
Could you not do like a negative and then re-import it?
I mean, you could re-import them all as 0. That's an easy way for journals. Just import them as $0 and then they just.
But will it
have them
delete
back.
the ones that are already in there? It will.
No, you could look in your safe search for ones that I created today. So, hey, I created these today. So you find them and then just set all of the amounts to 0. And then if they're effectively deleted, they'll still be there, but at least they're not causing any problems.
Okay, I hope that doesn't happen, but I will need to know how to do it.
that's a good reason why you do
them too, right?
You could
We
also
do that.
then just
Update the memos.
re-export them and import them with the right period.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like my recommendation is always use an external ID because that way if you need to re-import, you could just use that external ID to write over whatever you wrote.
Yeah.
So if you like, oh, it's the wrong date. Oh, cool. I got the external ID. Just re-import the external ID and the date, and then they all update.
And also add like line IDs as well. So if you're doing like journal entries and you want to go update specific lines, if you have the line ID, it allows you to go update a specific line. So always include external IDs and line IDs as well.
all good advice. So I've got a blog article with 19 common CSV errors that I've seen and solutions for that. But the errors are very cryptic if so it takes a little bit of learning. But ChatGPT can also be really good at helping to resolve those. Okay, so let's get into 2 specific scenarios. So talk about the no customer vendor line. So some of you are in NetSuite. If anybody wants to open up their AP aging, show of hands, anybody's AP aging look like this?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Why is that in there?
Okay, well, perfect. So we'll explain why this happens.
Perfect.
The reason that this happens is from your implementation, typically that you bring over your historical trial balances as a monthly journal entry. And all of the AP and the AR activity gets summarized into one line, which you can see here. You go like each month. And whenever you're hitting an AP or an AR account type, if you don't assign a name on the journal entry, it shows up as the no vendor or a no customer. And there's really no way to remove this without going back and updating the journal entry, at least that I'm aware of. And so the approach to opening this or to fixing this is you need to go back, you need to reopen the periods and assign a fictitious vendor or customer to each of these lines. And then in theory, if everything was done correctly, it should net out to 0. Sometimes it might, sometimes it might not. But if it nets to 0, then you can create a $0 payment on said import AP vendor. And then that clears and removes all these lines from your agent. Does that make sense? Yeah, and usually opening the periods causes a lot of panic from people. And so that's why you want to test this in the sandbox. Oftentimes when I do this with a client, it's like, hey, let's do this on like a Friday. Like I'll kick the load off on a Friday evening, and then Saturday or like some time period where people aren't in the system and you have no risk. Like there's limited risk that something is going to get posted.
Or you can create a new report, AP report that excludes that. And on your trial balance and your financial statements, it will show a separate line there as well anyway. But then you create a new report that will only show, say, your customers and not those no vendor. So we went a roundabout way. Someone helped us
because I don't know how to do it, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying, there is a different way that you can fix this, that you don't need to use this out of the sandbox, whatever the terminology is.
I know I've had issues filtering the AR and the AP aging reports because journal entries lines are treated at the line level and like the bills or the invoices are all header level. And so when you filter the accounts, I think that works if you don't have any journal entries flowing through your like AP accounts. But I guess I'd be open to other people. Other people have had that issue and have had success.
It also doesn't work great if you actually need to apply them or talk to an auditor about all your transactions.
Yeah, I think you definitely could just zero it out with or like have the report exclude them, but I think that there's drawbacks to doing that. At least in my experience. Obviously, if it's working at your expense.
Then we have the option, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
You just haven't solved the root cause. You're just creating a report. That's
Yeah.
just-
So,
right.
And I think, because in the past, like it has to do with how the journals and the AP and the AR accounts on the header versus the line level. I think I've tried to do this before a couple of years ago.
They now have options for account line in the report.
Okay, got it.
Stupid list.
Okay.
So it is
Got it.
easier than it used to be.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. Yeah, so then maybe you don't need to reopen the periods. But if you wanted to do it, this is the approach that I would take. So, again, we'd start with creating a saved search. Here are my criteria and the results that I would include. One thing on the criteria where it says the vendor, I like to, you want to set that as the vendor and not just the name, because technically a customer can be assigned to an accounts payable journal entry and that will still show up under the no vendor. So just to point out, because I've had that issue in the past. And then, as somebody pointed out, you want the internal ID and the line ID on your search results. And so then, the next step is to prep your CSV template, which in this case is actually pretty straightforward. You can see my fictitious vendor here called import AP vendor. I would grab the internal ID and the URL. So you can see it's 4409, and then you're just going to populate that into your CSV template. And then you would go to import to do the actual upload. So you would go to set up import CSV records. The import type would be transaction. The record type would be journal. Under step 2, you would do an update upload. Step 4, you're going to be mapping the fields. You can see here in my example of how you would map it, and you can notice the internal ID is at the header level, and then you've got the name ID and the line ID are at the line level. And then, step 5 is where you would save your import. Again, I always recommend saving it because most of the time, or at least for me, I need to go back and do it a second time. I made a mistake. And then, you would validate, hey, did all my transactions upload? Does my AP before and after, does the amount still match except for the kind of the name change? And does my import AP vendor now have a $0 balance? If it does, you can go create that $0 payment and then clear out make that vendor inactive, and then those lines are gone. Does anyone have any questions? I guess here, and then I got a couple other considerations. You want to do in the sandbox, especially if there's additional cleanup you're going to need to do. Reopening the period, so you definitely want to coordinate with your accounting team. And then, as I said, apply those journals.
One caution: if you re-edit a journal that's been applied, it unapplies.
Yes.
Very important.
Yes. Yeah. For the historical trial balances, I mean, at least with these lines, right, they wouldn't be applied to anything because the name would be missing. Now, I guess maybe the AR side was applied, but yes, that is a good point. That once you edit a journal entry, it will unapply, and I've had some painful experiences with that with clients.
Disaster, especially if it's relating to prior years that you did the
Okay. All right. So the scenario 2, so this is adjusting the invoice lines. So what I would recommend doing, again, you're going to create that save search. You've got the criteria would be specific. One thing when you adjust items on a transaction is that you do need to repopulate all of the relevant fields on those items. So you would want to include the memo, the amount, the rate, the quantity, any other relevant segments like department or class. You'd want to include those on your save search. Then you would export that to a CSV file. You'd adjust the file accordingly. So in the opening scenario that I shared, you would go and add the new item internal ID on all those lines, and then save that. Again, you'd want to load a test transaction first. Here's kind of the steps, very similar to the last example. The record type would be invoice. You're going to be doing an update upload. You'd be mapping the fields. This is an example. I didn't, but again, you can see kind of the line level. After the internal ID, everything else is at the line level. And then when you load that test transaction, you'd want to, review it. Hey, does everything look correct? Did the tax or the freight amounts, are those what I'm expecting? Is anything stuck in a workflow? And if everything looks good, then you could load the full batch. And then again, similar to the other, you want to test things in the sandbox, and you would need to reopen the periods if you have older transactions. Okay, so my key takeaways are the CSV import tool can reduce hours of manual work. It's safer than manual entry in my opinion. Always start small, the test transaction, and test in the sandbox. So if you have any other questions, feel free to, this is my contact information. I'm more than happy to be a resource for anything data related. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, where do you find the line level ID?
It's just a field called line ID in the search. So if you
In the search bar, like the Chrome search bar?
yep,
Those
yeah,
are like, so you were saying you need to have when you're updating, you need to know which line level ID you need, or am I misunderstanding?
Yeah, you can find it in your safe search. So there's a field called line ID. So if you're doing a journal with 200 lines and you only want to update line 5, you can pull the line ID into your safe search and update line 5 only.
On the invoice, how do you know which line 5, which line you
Like
want?
the current invoice, yeah, or
Yeah, so
just like I'm picking it up like your vendor has an internal ID. The line I level ID, is that just with the transaction or like?
yeah, just transactions.
Mhm.
But like on vendors, the invoices, like addresses would have IDs too, right? So like everything that's a sublist in NetSuite has an ID.
and I would recommend there's a setting, set preferences on that homepage. You can like check like show internal IDs, and it'll display the internal ID on every record in NetSuite. Yeah, so I would definitely. That's like the first thing I do whenever I get a new client is turn that box
I
up.
don't know why it's not on.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
ridiculous. Drives me nuts.
Yes.
I think for us too, when we were doing implementations with the NetSuite implementation team, and then there were things not thought of when we were transitioning the data. So then we could go back and use this to say, okay, like we thought, oh, let's consolidate on our items, let's make it cleaner, but then they're missing in some things. So then we had to go back and re-import them, and it can be handy those ways.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Paul. Yep, that was great. Yes, the CSV tool is probably one of the most used tools, like in NetSuite, right? And they go hand in hand with safe searches, right? So you got to build your data set, whatever you're going to update as well. Sure. All right, awesome. I think we're like almost right on time. Perfect. So after the event, we'll send out an event survey. Part of it will be like, did you like this location? Like, how's the room? Like, what could we improve? What other topics we would like for our next upcoming meetings. And that's not to say that our lunchbox series is usually kind of an open mic, right? Come with your question and we'll try and let's talk about it. But if there's a specific topic that we feel that would be good for like just a lunch and learn, like let's do it. So we're very open as a group to do that as well, so that we're not waiting another 3 months to get back together. Especially when we head into summertime, it's hard to pick dates. So we don't have our next date for in person yet. It'll most likely be July or August. But again, it's like that's very hard to get everyone's calendars to align when we're all available and stuff as well. So we'll probably have some more online sessions. I would personally like to do more of a social setting as well. I think in the fall, was it fall that we ran that?
Yep.
At the rec room up at Square One in Mississauga. And that was great. That was fantastic. It was more of a fun environment. We get to socialize, talk to each other. In this room here with the long table, it's hard to talk to anybody but your neighbor. And that's what the membership's all about, is get to know your neighbor, get to know others and what we're doing in NetSuite, make some connections, and hopefully grow our businesses all together as well. So look for summer in person, maybe on a patio. We'll see.
And the weather will be better.
Much better, much. Well, we hope. But yes, again, thank you very much for attending today. Really appreciate everybody's involvement and presenters. Awesome job. Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
I just have a general question. I don't know if somebody can open it. Is there another location to store files attached to transactions other than under communication files?
No, not really.
There was an answer to.
But if you don't have the tool file drag and drop, that makes it a lot easier.
To a file trade?
Yeah, so just put